Yeah, you're going to get a lot of that. Here we go. Okay, rain has stopped. That's good. That's good. Come on, the British. Come on, the British.
Yeah, that's really interesting testing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, blue skies. Hey, how about that? How about that? So these
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
You've got to also think of the passengers, because for me, I was like, yeah, come on, please go around, and you see people with their knuckles like buried in the seat armrest. It is a white knuckle ride, I have to say. You know, I mean, now what we're looking at, almost that. Behind the aircraft, if it's the captain, he's looking down the right-hand side of the aircraft. If it's the first officer, he's looking out of his right-hand window, because it is. Here we go. So these different pockets of air where you'll get different layers, the friction layers, which it can be a lot worse at this height that he's at now than it is down on the ground. So that's why you see these things making so much adjustment. Sideways. So the wind has really dropped. Was that it? Was that Storm Eunice? Oh, easy. Fair play, man. Because the captain or the first officer would have said, you know, just to let you know, folks, it might be a bit of a bumpy ride going into London. So just, you know, we'll have you on the ground as soon as we can, but just be a bit patient with us, and also be aware that it might be a little bit bumpy. So at least they warn you, they give you that warning.
Now do Ultra HD webcam, Ultra HD resolution. Now, not all software really supports that, but the webcam will just switch to HD if it's using software that doesn't support Ultra HD webcam. Now, it's got the same monitoring output. You can see there on the monitor, it's exactly the same. You can see the streaming standard on the monitor status. There's a whole lot of stuff there. Now, we're actually using a Blackmagic Web Representative 4K for this stream right now. So this stream's actually in Ultra HD. Although in some places, depending where you are in the world, sometimes YouTube actually switches down to a lower resolution. But you can check the settings on the bottom right-hand side of the player, and you should be able to select Web Representative 4K will be available today, and it'll be priced at $695. So we think it should be a really exciting model. It's going to be a great family. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a bit about HyperDeck Studio. Now, HyperDeck Studio has done really well for us over the years, but the models are getting a little bit old now. We're really unable to do any more software updates. You know, the first model didn't even compress video. So it's really amazing how much we've added over the years, but we have hit a limit on what we can do. So today what we're going to do is replace the entire family of HyperDeck Studio models. So let's start with the HyperDeck Studio Mini. Now, it's been a fantastic little model for us. It's popular as a quarter for HD switches, and we've added a lot with software updates. But again, you know, it's time for an upgrade. We wanted to add some more types of workflows, and so we've got a new model, and the new model is called HyperDeck Studio HD Mini. So let me check it out. I'll bring it out and show you. Here it is here. I'll just set it on top of the web presenter here. Oops. There it is there, so you can see it. So you can see it looks very similar to the older Mini model. You see from the front there, but it's actually quite different. It does have a lot of changes in it, and it's on the back that you can really see the difference. So I'll spin it around and you can see. I'll put it back there so I don't drive the camera guys crazy. There you go there. How's that look? So you can see the rear does have a lot of changes. Now, we still have the reference generator included. The original HyperDeck Studio Mini had a reference generator built in. It was great for multi-screen digital signage. It was really amazing that the old model had that. It was fantastic because it lets you daisy chain multiple units and sync them all together, and then remote trigger all the HyperDecks to play together, so you keep everything synchronized for like multi-screen signage. So it's pretty cool. So what we decided to do is take that idea further and actually add a timecode generator built in as well. Now this is new. What it allows you to do is loop other HyperDecks, so you can create an ISO stack where the first recorder will lock all the others. So you can loop the timecode out. You can see that there. There's the timecode out, and that's the generator, and there's a reference generator, and the inputs are underneath. Now it's also got 3G SDI in and out. It's got a HDMI output, so it's great for monitoring with ATEM switches. Or with ATEM mini switches, you can plug into those. It's got both AC and 12-volt DC inputs. You can see them on the back there. So you can have mains power or battery power. Now, another new thing we've done, we've added USB-C on the back for recording the USB discs. Now, that's also new. So you can record for really long durations on a single USB disk, because USB discs can get really big. You can even record your disk arrays. So look, we'll plug it in and check it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the streaming recorder here with the HyperDeck Studio HD Mini. So let's do that. So what I'll do is I'll take this out and move it across here and stack it over here. Just get that nice. Okay, so we'll put this one in the rack. I'll give it some power. There it is now. And we'll need to plug a video input in, so I'll just use a program out of the switcher here. There we go. So let's do a recording. So I'll have to insert a media card, so I'll do that. Again, I'm using it upside down, so I've got to feel my way around. So let's do a recording. So I'll hit record, which is that button there. There it goes. Now we're recording. So it's got dual media slots, which the older model had too, which means it can record forever. When that card fills up, if there's a second empty card in, it'll just switch to the empty card. Then you can hot swap the card that's full and just keep recording and keep bouncing backwards and forwards between cards. But it also has the USB disk support. So let's do a recording on that. So I'll stop recording, so you can see that there. Oops, I've got to find the right button. And I'll eject this card and I'll plug in a USB disk. I've got a USB disk here. So I'll plug that in. And now we can do a recording with that. So you can see it's come up there. It says USB 3 on the display. And I'll hit record. Now you can see I've got 61 hours of recording time. So you can really see how big USB disks are. They can fit a lot of recordings and for a long duration. You can see that there on the indicator. You can see how long that duration is. So that's 61 hours is a long time. Now it even works with USB hubs and multiple disks. So you can have a hub and then more than one disk, it'll switch to the disks. The ATEM Mini actually does that if you have a hub and multiple disks. It supports the Blackmagic multi-dock, which has got 4 disks in it, so it'll go from disk to disk. But what's also really exciting about the HyperDeck Studio HD Mini is that also the USB works as a webcam. So if you plug the USB into a computer, it looks like a webcam. So that means any software will work. It's a bit like the web presenters. I think that's an exciting feature. I'm not sure what people are going to do with it, maybe for remote monitoring and things like that, but I think it's really exciting to have that feature built in as well. Now, there's lots of other features too. You can see in the record menus, I'll stop recording, but yeah, we've got nice menuing system in it. Let me stop recording there. So you can see what I can do is show you the menus. So I can push menu down the bottom there, and you can see I've got the menus there. And I can go into different menus, and you can see the codecs. I can use the search dial. Sorry, I'm using it upside down again, so there it is there. You can see all the different codecs we've got. So it records and plays back ProRes, DNX, and H.264 files. It also supports PCM uncompressed and AAC compressed audio. Obviously, PCM audio is used with ProRes and DNX, while AAC audio is used with H.264. So it supports also long file recordings. It'll do like 3 hours in a single file. And it also, one of the other things it does is it supports true interlaced H.264 files. Now that's really important when you're using 1080i HD formats, but it also is important for recording NTSC and PAL formats. Now archive content is generally NTSC or PAL, and it's interlaced. So what this means is that interlaced, so interlaced files are really an important feature for H.264. Now, if you're capturing from old decks, this is why you really need that. It's the recording from old decks. It lets you keep the original format of the videotape unchanged. And that's really important because, you don't want to do any kind of processing. You get that kind of, Apollo 11 effect where you've got this processed imagery and there's not a lot you can do with it as technology improves later. What you can do is you can preserve the inlay structure of the file on disk, and then you can apply different kinds of processing on those files as technology improves. Yeah, the processing you're doing today is going to be very different to the processing you do on those files in 10 years' time. So you really want that inlay structure to be preserved so you can reprocess files in the future if you want to. So I think inlay H.264 is a really important format. Now, the new model also has 13 languages. It's got English, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, German, French, Russian, Italian, Portuguese, and Turkish. And we've now added 2 new languages, Polish and Ukraine. We even have a light and dark mode. You might have noticed on the LCD that it's actually a new dark design. You can actually change it. Let me show you if I can use this upside down. I don't know how to scroll this up. I can scroll through to the setup menu. There it is there. And I can actually scroll through the settings down to dark appearance. See, there it is there. And I can set it. And you can change to a light appearance. There it is there. Or you can change back to, whoops. There you go. Oh, it just automatically changed back to dark because it was the first item in the list and I'm using it upside down. So I've got no idea how to use the menus upside down. So you can see it's really kind of exciting. It's I think the dark mode actually looks really nice. But again, you can make it look like the older models were at light mode only. This one does both dark and light mode. So the big difference, so okay, what's the differences between this new model and the older HyperDeck Studio Mini that it replaces? Now this new model doesn't have fill and key outputs like the old model had. And the old model also had 6G SDI, so it could do some low frame rate Ultra HD. So 3G SDI on the new model supports SD and HD formats only, but not Ultra HD. So they're really the 2 differences. They're probably the 2 features that are missing from the new model. Yeah, but we think the features we have added are much more important. They allow you to do lots of new things like the timecode generator and recording to USB disks are really much more useful features. And you can stack decks and then sync them all with the timecode and reference. So it allows that new ISO workflow where you can have a camera connected to each deck and you can have multiple decks all recording and the whole set records in sync. Then you can take those files and use them with multicam software for editing. So it's really exciting. Now there is a couple of other new features in the deck as well. It's the 1G Ethernet that's built in is actually much faster now. So you can do file uploads and deck control. So it's, it's faster to do file uploads. So a good example of this is if you remote uploaded a H.264 file for digital signage, those uploads will be quicker. So it's exciting. So the model, okay, this model is not quite the same as the older model, but it really is an amazing feature set. It's also much lower cost. This new HyperDeck Studio HD Mini will retail for only $495. So it is dramatically cheaper. And this is one of the reasons why we could do that. Plus the HyperDeck Studio HD Mini is available now. So it's a fantastic little broadcast quality player and recorder. It's a really great mastering recorder, such as, with the ATEM TV Studio switcher here, which we have in a rack. This is a switcher and recording solution now. It's a perfect ISO recorder now because you can stack multiple units and also you can link them up and reference them all together and use it for large, multi-screen digital signage. But also with the H.264, you can do long-form broadcast logging, where you're recording a broadcast feed. So it's really a fantastic little recorder. We're really proud of this little model. It's not a low-end model at all. It's a very capable product. But we did think a little bit about the size. If you think about it, HyperDeck Studio HD Mini, if the design does have any kind of limitations, it's actually the transport controls on the front. The front controls are a little too small for tasks such as clip playback. It's just a little hard to use. If you're interacting with a lot, it's a little bit difficult to use. It's basically the penalty of a 1/3 rack unit design. It's a great size because we can fit it in a rack with a switcher like we've got it here, but the space on the front panel is a bit limited. So we thought, what happens if we made it a little bit bigger? And we're actually a little bit shocked when we tried it. Just by going to half a rack width, we can add a lot more features. It's kind of like a sweet spot. We get better transport controls, but we also get space for other things as well. In fact, it totally transforms the HyperDeck. So we have a new model that's slightly bigger and it's half a rack unit wide. It's called HyperDeck Studio HD Plus, and let me bring it out and show it to you. Here it is here. You can see it there. You can see really how different it is. Just adding a little bit more width makes a huge difference. What we'll do is I'll look at the rear connections first. I'll move it around. I'll put it down so that way, actually, let me get rid of this USB disk. And I'll put it down there so that the poor camera guys aren't chasing me as I'm wobbling around talking to you. How's that? I'll place that nicely there. It's a little bit crooked. There it goes. Looks nice. So you can see the connections there. Now, it's got 6G SDI in and out, which means it can record and play all SD and HD formats in H.264, ProRes, and DNX, but the 6G SDI supports some Ultra HD. So we can record and play ProRes and DNX in Ultra HD up to 2160p 30. Now, web broadcasters don't often use high frame rates, so 6G SDI is really good for them. Now, even the HDMI connections will do Ultra HD up to 30p. It's only the H.264 that's limited to SD and HD resolutions. And that's why we're still calling it a HD model, because not all the formats are supported in Ultra HD, but you do get a bit of Ultra HD, but you get everything in SD and HD. But the 6G SDI gives you a little bit of Ultra HD, but it's still really mostly a HD deck. Now, the 6G SDI input has a loop out, which you can see there. Oops, wrong side, everything's upside down. There it is there, loop out. So you can loop out to other video equipment. Now, another new feature of this model is it's got the dual outputs. So the dual outputs allow for fill and key. So you can play back a ProRes 4444 file in HD. It'll real-time convert the alpha channel to a key output in real time. So you get a fill and key on those there. So it's great for live graphics into switches where you can key in the switcher. Now, we also have a new SDI format, sorry, a new H.264 format in this HyperDeck Studio HD Plus model. It's called H.264 SDI. Now, in these HyperDecks, you've got H.264 low, medium, and high, and now you've got a fourth quality level called H.264 SDI. Now, normally H.264 is an 8-bit 420 format. That's totally fine for streaming or computer playback. It's really what it's normally used for. However, H.264 is also a fantastic compression scheme. The files are much smaller, and editing software is really fast on modern computers. I mean, the computers are so fast now, H.264 is really easy to edit with. So we kind of wanted to make a better version of it. We wanted to capture all the quality in the SDI standard. Now, SDI is actually 10-bit 422, so the quality of, that's what the quality of the new H.264 SDI quality setting is. It captures 10-bit 422 and gets all the quality from the SDI connection coming into the deck. Now, this is great for archive because, like I was talking about before, the files are much smaller, but they've got every single bit of every pixel in the SDI connection. So it's really good. Now, actually, there is some software that doesn't support H.264 and 422 and 10-bit. So just check the files with the software you're using before you use it on a job. But I do think it's an exciting new format that's going to be really popular. Now, if you notice the back, there is a few other changes, of course. We now have space for an HDMI input as well as the HDMI out. So it's a great recorder for like consumer equipment, but it's also a fantastic recorder for ATEM Mini. You know, you can use it to record ProRes and DNX from ATEM Mini switches. Now, most ATEM Mini switches, most of the models have recording for H.264 files. But ProRes and DNX use lower video compression, and they're also 10-bit 422. Plus, the new H.264 SDI quality setting is also obviously 10-bit 422. So that's also supported. So really adding a HyperDeck Studio allows these formats to be recorded with ATEM Mini. That's great because, you know, ATEM Minis are actually 10-bit 422 switches. There's nothing low-end about an ATEM Mini switcher. They're professional internally. And so they're actually quite high-end switches, even though they're, you know, small and they've got HDMI connections. So I think this is a fantastic companion for ATEM Mini. Now, if you notice on the back, we've also got a monitoring output that's got on-screen overlays. Now, these are actually the same overlays that HyperDeck Extreme has. You'll notice also on the back, there's an RS422 remote output connection. Now, any button that's pressed on the front panel will be output on the RS422 remote out connection, and any command coming in will also received on the input RS422 connection or Ethernet will be output on the RS422 output as well. So that means you can loop remotes and trigger a whole stack to record. You just press record on one of the HyperDecks and all the rest of them will go into record. So that's a really nice feature. And it also now has a 4-pin broadcast style power connector. So that's pretty cool. Now it's still got the USB for recording to external disks. And of course that USB still works as a webcam. But anyway, let's see how it works. So first I'll plug it in. Now what I'll do is I'll get a Terranix Mini rack shelf so I can sit it on top and it looks really nice. So hold on, I'll just get that and I'll put this here. Then I can show you the front. So there it is there. I'll just line it up. Make it look like a real rack of equipment, and then I'll set it in front. Set it on there. Now I need to add some power. It's got a power cable here. And we'll also plug in a video input because I'll need a video source. There we go. Now you can really see how it compares to the HyperDeck Studio HD Mini below it. You can really get a good example of the differences between the two models, and there's not a lot of extra width, but you can see it's quite different. Now what we'll do is we'll plug in the monitoring output so you can actually see a live video feed from the monitoring out. So I'll plug that in. There it is there. Now you can see there's a whole bunch of overlays there. There's a lot of information. You know, there's like media status and time code. You can also see the input format on the monitor. So let's plug an SD card in from the other deck and we'll move it up and then we can do a recording on this one. So I'll get it down here if I can find it. There it is there. Now I'm using it all upside down. Oops, let me feel my way. There it is there. You can actually now see the media status. You can see I've got 6 hours of recording on that SD card. And the codecs displayed, we're actually using H.264 SDI on this one. Now the audio meter's there. This is set to 2 channels of audio, but you can actually, it'll reflect the number of audios you got, channels you got selected in the Hyperdeck in the setup menu. So if you've got 4 channels of audio selected, it'll show 4 meters. If you've got 8 or 16 channels selected, it'll actually even show 16 audio meters on the overlay, depending on the number of audio channels you've got selected. Now let's look at the front panel controls here. You can see with the larger size, we've got a lot more space for things. So you can see we've got much better transport controls. So let's do a recording. There you go there. And you can see they're really traditional style deck controls. Really nice, beautifully. We've even got an input button, so you can change the input and select the input from the front. Now, you'll also notice we've got a headphone socket on the front